Okay, once again. We're moving on to the last phase of Flash, and which is the interactive part, where now you can integrate linear movies in the buttons, and you can put the timeline in control of the end user. So you're not playing, if you have a 100-frame movie, it doesn't play from 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way to 100 and then loop again. It by default stops, and then by integrating the buttons, it allows the end user to click and to play linear if they want, or they can jump around in the timeline. It's not an open system, but it does allow more flexibility. So there are a couple of directions that we can go. And there is this gallery, type of gallery that we'll see in a minute, or slideshow, that is done in ActionScript 3. There's also one that's available, we'll start with it, as a template that's available to all of you. This is a photo slideshow. You may notice other templates that any teachers in here want to create quizzes. There's different styles. You can create interactive quizzes for your students from here. Pretty interesting. But anyway, there's the slideshow that I want to show you. So this is one type of slideshow. Well, let's look at this one first. And you'll notice it's just a 5-frame slideshow. This can be 5 frames, it can be 100 frames, it can be 500 frames. It can be as many frames as you have images. If you continue to add images, here's the picture layer down at the bottom here. So if I turn all of these off and I just unlock this one, you can see we just have, these are the pictures at the bottom. There are 5 pictures by default. And this is the player. This enables you can click and move this around. And it would probably be best if I were to just publish it and show you how this thing works. On the surface, it seems very simple. It gives you 2 options. You can allow the end user to have it autoplay, where you click on it, and it just holds for 5 seconds, and it moves to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, or they can stop it, and then they can go forwards or backwards, and they can control it. For them to control it to go forwards and backwards is pretty simple. To add the autoplay feature takes a whole page of code, and I'll show you what that code looks like in a minute. So it's not quite so easy. But let's go ahead and publish this so you can get an idea of what this looks like first. Okay, so this is the slideshow. And you can see the little, if this gets in the way, it can be moved about. This can also be edited, and I'll show you on another day how we can tear this apart, because I think this is one of the ugliest things. I guess if I were doing something for Star Trek or something, you know, it would be appropriate, but for my family vacations, this doesn't work. Having said that, whoever did it, the ActionScript that makes this work is beautiful. So what we can do is, you can see we have an autoplay feature, and we have a next feature. So I can click, and I can go back and click, or I can press here autoplay, and it will hold for 5 seconds, and then it goes to the next one, 5 seconds, and now when I roll over it, I can pause it, and then I can play by hand. Okay. Simple enough. What you can do, and this is what I encourage you to do, because this class is not geared for you to become ActionScript folks or programmers, but to look at the ActionScript that exists for this, and to go in and deconstruct it, use the ActionScript as is, but then change the interface. Make it look any way you want. This can be changed dramatically. You can get rid of all of this crud and just use your own buttons here. Does that make sense? So you're stripping away all this extraneous stuff, and you're just leaving the basic buttons, and you're, more importantly, under the hood, you're leaving the ActionScript. So what does the ActionScript look like? Okay, I'm going to go first here and on the actions layer, and I'll go to Window, and let's look at Actions. And it just has a simple stop action. Because if it didn't have this stop action, it would just automatically play through randomly. What we're doing, and this is true in most interactive projects like this, is that you have a stop action from the get-go so that it doesn't automatically play through. What enables the viewer to play will be the action script that has been added to the interface. Okay? So now with the interface or the controller selected, I'm going to go ahead and double click and go inside here. Now that I'm inside the controller, this is all the action script that was added to do that one little thing. Now I will tell you right now, for me to program this by hand, by myself, with no assistance from anything, I can't do it. I take from this and I build. You know, I take, it's like the rap music, it's like contemporary music. You take little bits and pieces from here and you build your own stuff, you know, and actually programmers do that too. I had a programmer in this class a few years ago, and he would sit there with all of his books and he'd say, well, I take little snippets from here and there and I cut and paste and I put it together. But he understood what he was doing, you know, so make something more complex. So you can take all of the action script in here and just leave it intact. And then what we can do is we can go back and we can close that, and we can take the elements in here, take the actual, if we look in the library, and here are the template assets. So notice that they have a folder for photos. To add photos to this, all you have to do is double click and you have to just add a whole bunch more. Make sure that they're the right size, the right format. These are just bitmap images. They haven't converted them to movie clips, or they haven't, you know, any symbols or anything. If we look inside the template or the template assets, here are the button, drag bar. Here's also some other stuff. What I want to see is the controller in here. Where is it? It should be. Yeah, we have a bunch of movie clips in here, but what we're going to do is this. We have not talked about these yet. I don't know if we'll have time to, but hold on here. They're components. So that it's a lot of stuff that's already kind of built in. For video, we would use that if you want flash playback, if you it's nice that when you build your own video in here, and you want the play buttons and the fast forward and the rewind, and you've seen some probably pretty nice ones on the internet. A lot of these are just built in. It's just a component that you drag on to the stage. It adds all the action script, it adds all of the information you need, and it's done. It's just plug and play. So these components work really nicely. And you can build, if you know action script, you can build your own components, and that's what they've done here. So that's a component, but we can go into that component now that we've incorporated it into our own library. And I can take this and I can double click, and I go inside the container of that component, and I can begin to look, and I see, okay, here's action script inside the container. I can look at, you know, here's this layer. Well, I don't want that. I can throw that away. We can look at that layer. Okay, let's look inside this layer. Well, what is that on that layer? Oh, it's a graphic symbol. Well, let's go inside the graphic symbol and see how it's how it's constructed. Inside the graphic symbol, we see 4 layers in here. Okay, do we want that? Do we want this? You know, the little rings. Do we want this other stuff in here? See how you can remove all of that except the buttons down here? And then when we look at the buttons, we could go ahead and we can actually change those. We can swap out and use different buttons. But when you do so, the action script remains intact. We're just changing the interface, the surface, you know, the appearance of it, nothing else. So you can make it look however you want. And then we go back to the scene, and then, for example, some other things. I don't like the border. I do like where maybe there would be a little area for down below that gives a description of what I've done. So that would be kind of nice to maybe create our own. But you'll notice that, again, we can turn off on and off layers in here. And we can see, we'll leave the date, time, you know, I don't know if you want that in there. Captions I like, that was at the bottom. We could create our own. You know, do you want this overlay? Do you want this transparency around the corner? Do you like that border? I don't, you know, I don't. You could create your own border if you want a border. And then we have the picture layer. So you can go back in and take this and customize it. So this is one type of slideshow that we can create that you can integrate into Dreamweaver in the second half of the class. Okay. The other type, and that they use ActionScript 2 to do that. This one we use ActionScript 3, and this is a little bit different. You'll notice that here is an empty container here. And what you do over here is you create a separate set of buttons. And right now, each of these buttons, it's only one button, but there's no different appearance to them. They all look the same, but you'll notice that each of these have been assigned a different name. Button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, if we were to go to the action script and look and see what's going on in here, let's go to here. This is the action script, or maybe it's not. Hold on here. Let's go to Window. Let's look at Actions again. Okay, yeah, he's saying he owns copyrights to all this, but he doesn't. So anyway, hold on here 1 second. Oh, I'm sorry, it's in layer 1. There we go. So this is the action script for each of the buttons. And we'll talk about this more next week. And you can see button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, button 5, button 6. If you want to add 10 more buttons with different images, you would do the same, and you would pretty much repeat each of these, the action script that you see for each of these. And what they're doing is they're creating, you know, event listeners, they're creating functions, they're creating a way that you can load each of these images into this container. So it's a very efficient way to work, because what you can do is you can take all of your images, put them in a folder, and then you can assign in the action script, as long as the name is accurate here. And he named each of the files. Notice that it's roadtrip1.jpg, roadtrip2.jpg. However you choose to name your files, you have to be very accurate about it. As long as this is exactly the same as the file name in the folder, it will load that image into this container. And this is a pretty common way to work these days. So how this looks and how this works when we're all done is, I'll go ahead and publish it, is it will look pretty much like what you see here from the get-go. Providing it doesn't crash. There we go. You just see, you don't see the container anymore. But that just disappears. It's an empty movie clip is what it is. And what we do is we use each of these buttons that have been assigned a different piece of action script to load a separate image into that container. So now when I click the first one, it brings that image in. When I click this one, it brings that image in. When I click this one, it brings another image, and so on and so forth. You can have as many as you want. There's another thing that we can do too, that's a part of this, that we can also, as you're loading each of these in part of the action script, we can use dynamic text below to have descriptions loaded as well. So if you want a description that says this is, you know, here we are, you know, overlooking so-and-so pass and you know, on our way to Las Vegas or something like that, and just a little description. So this is an alternative type of.
To load these pictures, do the file pictures have to be the same resolution and the same file size?
Correct.
Or
Well, the same physical size, yes. That's something that you want to do to make sure that they are consistent.
so it doesn't.
It would put the larger one in here, but it would clip part of it off. If it was larger.
So it will not shrink it.
Correct. It won't shrink. It won't shrink it. No. So it's best to prepare it to say, okay, as I'm designing this, I think I like the layout of this. If you wanted a larger, or maybe I wanted a vertical format or something, I can go ahead and I can select this, and it tells me right here the width is 500 by 332 pixels. That's the size I need my images in Photoshop, and they will fit perfectly. Now, what if you have images that are various sizes? They can't be any larger than that, but they could be smaller than that. The next step to take would be to look at the background and look at the hexadecimal number for that. It's, I guess, the devil is 666, right? Well, what is 66666? So I don't know. That's his father or something, or grandfather. So this is the color you would use. So in Photoshop, you still create the image that's 534 by whatever, and place your image in that and make sure the background is that gray, and when it appears, it will appear seamless with the background. Does that make sense? So they can be different sizes. It's easier if they're all uniform in size, but they don't have to be. Okay? So these are the two types of interactive pieces that we'll work with, and we're going to work with the existing action script, and I will do my best to describe what's going on with each of them. And we can watch some videos on that as well to have somebody else maybe do a better job in describing what's going on with that action script, because this is kind of a crash course with it. If we do the action script 2 in the first version, I know that like the back of my hand. Action script 3, I still don't know as well. So it's easier for me to describe it the best I can, and then have others explain it a little bit more. So it depends on which kind of slideshow you want to do. And remember that these these formats can be moved around. It doesn't have to be, these aren't static. You can change the background, you can change the type, you can change the size of the loader, you can change the format of the buttons. The only thing that you want to keep intact is the action script that makes it work. What makes it work. It's the engine under the hood is at work. How many cars does General Motors produce, or Toyota? That it's got to be a phenomenal number, where the chassis is the same, the engine is the same. It's just the container, the body, it differs, and that's all you're doing. You're changing the body. You're keeping everything under the hood the same. The chassis is all the same. Now for some really elaborate slideshows. If you wish, you can go to Adobe File Exchange or Adobe Flash Exchange, something like that. Well, let me see if I can go there. The web here has been very slow for the past couple of days. So I'm going to go to Adobe FlashExchange.com. And there's other companies too on the web. And some of these are free. Most of these, can't find it. Okay, let me type in here. Adobe Flash Exchange. Dreamweaver Flash. This is what I want. And they have exchanges for all their software. It's taking a while to load it. And for some really elaborate slideshows with scrolling menus and things like that, that take lots of time. And, yeah, you'll find that you can buy templates. Now, it depends on what you want to do. A great way to learn, since this is an introductory class, if you want to see how people have built it, it's similar to the two that we just looked at. You look at it, and it's the way a lot of people learn, especially years ago. It's called reverse engineering now, but oftentimes when some people, when they're kids, they like taking apart, clocks, radios, things like that. They can't put them back together, but I see how it's all built. This is how the thing works. And then later on, it's the same with cars and other stuff. You got to take it apart to see how it works. And then if you think about what you're doing, then you go, well, I think I can make this better. Or now I know how to construct my own. Now this is taking forever. So let me try this. It's the same one. I don't know why it's taking forever to load. There we go. Okay. So some people sell components. Let's look and see here. Holo effects, dynamic text effects, Slideshow Pro for Flash. There you go. Buy it. Let's see what it is. Let's see how much they charge for it. $29. Now, I would like to see a sample of it. Sometimes they have samples, sometimes they don't. Is it? Where's sample? Oh, view sample. There we go. Okay, let's look at the sample. Is this the way to go if you're going to be a Flash designer? I don't think it's a bad way to go. It's a way to ease yourself into learning. So here's a fancy one. So here you can buy the template, and again, you could change the colors, you can do all kinds of stuff. This is pretty elaborate, that you roll over these and it gives you a little pop-up, a little bit bigger version, and then when you click on it, it takes you to that slide. And notice a nice slide transition. And so it's an entire website, really. Here's home, news, oops, no, it's not, never mind. This is just their home. So this would be an example of the types of slideshows that they have. And again, it can be, so you can have tons of these things. Okay. So it's another place to go. Yeah, that's what these are for. You buy the template for $30. You plop in your own photos, and you can leave it as is, or you can customize it and change it to suit your needs. Now, if you find something close, and this is why I say, I don't know, maybe it's important for you to know enough to do what you need to do. For the longest time, I was of the old school where you have to know, and I still think this is true, just if you enjoy doing what you're doing, to know how to build something from the ground up. That's really important, to know it forwards and backwards. But as you're learning, and I know most of you want to get to this level quickly, that sometimes it's not a bad idea to start with a template like that, because especially if somebody's paying you, if it takes you, it depends on what if you don't mind earning less money to learn, then you can build it yourself, and you can earn $1 an hour, and that would take you 30 hours if you're lucky to build that. Or you can spend $30 and put it together, and you can sell it to them and make several $100s, and at the same time you can deconstruct it and then learn and build your own. See how they put this together, and you'll see some of them are fairly simple. Some of them, like the one that we looked at here for the timing of this, which one? Yeah, this one. When we looked in here, and I went, inside. Wait a minute, I need to go back. Yeah, I'm inside the controller. And I looked at the action script inside the controller. Let's look at the action script again. That's a, for just that one function, that's a lot of action script. But you can see here, and they actually, and it's kind of nice, they have given you these little instructions, and that's what any of these are in that are grayed out, where you see the double slashes. That allows you to make comments so that it's not part of the code. It says get the current time and elapsed time. That's telling you what this piece of code is doing. The next piece of code, it says update timer indicator. So it's telling it once it's gotten that information, then go ahead and put it in the timer information. And then it's telling you in the next piece of code, if delay time is met, then go to next photo. All of this code down here, these functions have to do with that autoplay for it to be able to hold for 5 seconds and then move on to the next one. A lot of it, and you can, I would imagine it's the same in any field, that the more, for the longest time, it was expected if you were going to learn to become a painter that you would copy from the masters to learn how they have built theirs. It's still expected in a number of, in art schools. And that's what I see this doing. It would be no different than a writer reading to understand other people's techniques, their styles, their approach to writing, and then building your own. Because believe me, none of this was built in a vacuum. The people who wrote this code didn't sit down and say, okay, I'm going to ignore everything else I've learned and I'm going to write my own. It doesn't work that way. That's why I found it amusing that this other guy, where I got this other one here, this gallery, is saying that he owns the copyright to the code, when it's the same code you would use for any of it. It's not unique. I don't know what makes him think he owns it. It's not unique. So maybe because he thinks he's unique. So this will be the last project that we'll do in Flash. And my hope, though, is that we will have enough time in the coming weeks when you're done with the slideshow and you're starting to, with the banner ad, and we're working on the slideshow, that I can also show you and we can integrate a little bit of video into this. So if you want to integrate video into your project, you can, or into your website, because that's done quite a bit now. Okay, I wasn't able to do that last semester, so and I would really like to do that. Okay, okie doke. So that's it for today, and I will look in to see why GarageBand kept crashing, because I would like to record that as well.